Welcome to Spiritual Message. The government has extended the lockdown period in India. Many are disturbed by this. Severe anxiety is gripping some, rightly so. What we are experiencing now is a general lockdown. In our life, there are also other types of experiences of lockdown. For example, we retreat from social life temporarily when we are sick or when we meet with failures. During that period, there is less interest to meet people or not much interest even to eat anything. It may look like a kind of depression. These are temporary experiences. We know that it is temporary. But there are times when we do not know how long these experiences are going to last. In that case, it creates anxiety. It is this anxiety that we need to deal with. Only a strong faith can help us in such situations. Our faith should come to our rescue. Otherwise, it is not faith at all. For that, we need to just remember what St. Paul taught us in Romans 8:28. We know that in everything God works for the good of those who love Him, whom He has called according to His plan. Please pay attention to this category of people, those who love Him. Do I come in that category? Yes, I need to be in the category of those who love Him, love God the Father. As I said in the previous video, bear fruit, God loved us even before we knew Him and loved Him. God's love is an everlasting love. But the problem is that love of God in us is not everlasting. It is fluctuating from situation to situation. For example, there is a certain amount of love of God in us when we receive Holy Communion, or when we are in prayer, or helping the poor, or appreciating good in others, or making some sacrifices, or reading the scriptures very devotionally and attentively, etc. But will there be same amount of love of God in us when we eat food, or when we refuse to respect our parents, or when we are angry with somebody, or when we react by shouting at someone? How much love of God will be there in us when we speak ill of others, when we believe the rumors about others and spread them, when we falsely accuse others, when we take revenge on others, when we take pleasure in the sufferings of others, etc. This is just to show how we can be with lots of love of God in us at certain times, and with lesser and lesser love of God in us at some other times. This is what we need to examine. It seems once a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law were fighting with each other at home. At a particular moment, one of them realized that it was time for Mass. So she said, "Let us go for the Mass now. The rest we will continue when we come back." Some, after the Mass, walked back talking ill of others. It looks very interesting, isn't it? But it is the reality. We find some taking an interval from doing evil and do some good works. But thereafter, when they come back and continue the evil work they were doing earlier, even with renewed vigor and enthusiasm. It goes to show that man is capable of doing good and bad at the same time. It might be argued that the so-called evil is done thinking that it is something good, but we know that it is not the case always. Let us accept that man is capable of doing evil knowing that it is evil. That is what is called a sin, deliberate violation of God's commandment. Otherwise, we may have to say that there is no sin at all. man does good knowingly and man does bad too knowingly. When we are doing good, there is more love of God in us, and when we do evil, there is less love of God in us. It is in this context I say that we need to assess ourselves and see whether there is love of God in us or not, and if there is, to what extent or how much. It is about those in whom there is love of God. The Word of God says, for those who love God, everything will work for the good. It is this type of people who are called according to His plan. All of us are called by God according to His plan. So there must be love of God in us. Then everything will work for the good for us. One more condition is to be fulfilled if this promise has to come to be true for those called by God according to His plan. Music is complete only when it is heard. Giving is complete only when it is received. Similarly, calling according to His plan is complete only when there is cooperation from those who are called. Therefore, what is required here is cooperation of man to the plan of God. Then only in everything God works for the good of those who love Him, whom He has called according to His plan, will be fulfilled. So, in the love of God, we have to accept the plan of God, even if it is against our liking or desires. This must be our faith, that God has a welfare plan for us. We strongly believe in Jeremiah 29:11, where it tells us very clearly, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for peace and not for disaster, plans to give you hope and a future. Therefore, lockdown or no lockdown, this is the promise of the Lord. That's why St. Paul asks in Romans 8:31, if God is with us, who can be against us? Therefore, my dear friend, lockdown or no lockdown, it is our faith that is going to sustain us. So don't be worried of lockdown. Everything is temporary. Or if the worst comes, we will learn to live with COVID-19. Everything will pass away. But God and His faithful love for us do not pass away. God's love for us is everlasting because God is eternal. So in response, let us also love God more than anything else and more than everybody else, with all our heart, with all our mind, and with all our strength. Then we will find love, peace, and joy. Thanks for dedicating your valuable time to listen this spiritual message. May the love of God in you and your strong faith in God truly overflow to others always. God bless you. Amen.